Yeah. Hello, Angular Philippines. So first of all, good evening, everyone, and yeah, welcome to our Angular monthly meetup. So this is our first meetup. Well, actually, sorry, no, second meetup for this year. So this is our April meetup, and yeah, we are really happy that we have invited a lot of speakers for our upcoming meetups, and this is actually an international one for the Philippines as well. So yeah, I hope that you can yeah have questions. If you have questions, if you have other concerns, so please just go through our comments. So we are actually live Facebook page and yeah, YouTube as well. So we are all live in our streaming services. So if you have questions, so please put it into English. We will not yeah, so for our speaker to understand as well. So yeah, let's please refrain in asking questions in Filipino, so for us to be able to more understand. All right. So yeah, before going to our main speaker, so I'll just share my screen, and for the new for the newbies or for the newcomers for Angular PH, so I would like to introduce Angular Philippines for us. All right. Um, yeah. Once again, welcome to Angular Philippines. So we are a tech community since 2016, and yeah, we are still continuing to organize meetups and seminars in the Philippines and remotely as well. So yeah, what is Angular Philippines? So basically, we are a non-profit tech community who is passionate on organizing events such as meetups, seminars, and conferences here in there in the Philippines. So for the students and professionals, and our goal is to reach all of the developers in the Philippines to spread and promote the latest technologies. So we are actually a non-profit. So we're always organizing events, communities, and seminars, webinars as well for the students and professional. And you are all free to join. And yeah, we are founded on year 2016. So I'm actually one of the um, first founders of Angular Philippines. So we are already running for 10 years, and we only started for like 10 members. No? So we are actually few members when we started. And right now, here are the active community leaders. So I'm actually one of the main community leaders as well, and also Ryan here with my fellow co-host and other active community leaders. So um, it just basically if you want to join our community, so please feel free to contact each of our leaders or even me, or just contact our Facebook page if you want to be a core member. Right now we are currently 6,000 members, also on Discord and also on Facebook. So we are actually active. And if you want to discuss something, if you have some ideas, if you have some um, and if you have some ideas that you can share, or if you have some suggestions for our community, so please feel free to contact us. And yeah, what are the events that we did already? So we are partnered with a lot of tech communities in the Philippines, also in other countries. So we are always doing monthly meetups, just like this one. We are partnered with AWS Club and also Education PH. We have also partnered with Microsoft Philippines. We did some several speaking events with different communities internationally and locally. We are also doing Angular podcast. Angular podcast is happening twice or thrice a year, and we also have our new websites where we are posting our events. Okay, upcoming events. So we still have our Angular monthly meetup. So this is what is currently happening right now, and also speaking events with different communities, Stack League, Angel Hack, Steava, and other community schools there in the Philippines. And we also have the Angular podcast, and we are still continuing to build different features for our website. Okay, and yeah, if you want to stay updated, our website is live, so that's angular-ph.org. So we are still continuing to build our website. So blog post, for example, some other features that you can actually manage your events or calendar. So we are still continuing to update it. And yeah, if you want to join Angular Philippines, it's absolutely free. So you don't have to pay something because we are a non-profit community. And this is our Facebook group. This is our Facebook page, Angular Philippines, or you can just search for Angular Philippines. And you can also join our Discord. So we are also have some groups there that if you have some questions with Angular, so please feel free to join. Okay, yeah. Basically, that's it. So I'll just go back. All right. So yeah. Let's go on to our speaker for this evening. Yeah, I guess it's evening there in the Philippines. So it's six. We're here 6 hours ahead. So yeah, just a short introduction for our speaker for this evening. So I'm actually a fan of our speaker. So I'm always reading their articles in Angular.love because as an Angular developer, it's really helpful for me to read their articles for the new stuff, what is happening in Angular, what are the strategies. So he is a Google developer expert in Angular and one of the known authors of House of Angular, and they are our partners actually for Angular.love. So from Poland actually, and yeah, please welcome Mateusz Stefanczyk.
Hello, hello. Thank you guys for having me. Thank you for entire community for joining us and like spend this evening with us and with Angular. So hopefully my presentation will be insightful for you guys.
Yeah, thank you, Mateusz, and thank you for accepting our invitation. So
No
it's
problem.
to have for our community, and yeah, you can have the stage.
Okay, so thank you. Let me share my screen. Okay, probably you can already see it. So I will shortly introduce myself again. Like I am Mateusz Stefanczyk, and on daily basis I work in the House of Angular as Angular team leader, and I am also Google developer expert Angular. So I have been working with Angular for recent 10 years, and I have been working with all kinds of the forms in scope of the Angular reactive template driven forms. And right now I started exploring the signal forms, and I think really like I feel for maybe first time that working with the forms is really enjoyable. And in this presentation, I will try to show you why I think that the forms is workable with the signal forms, and even why the signal forms are biggest refing that of the forms we have ahead. How simply it is actually to use the signal forms and what are the biggest benefits I can see with them. So okay, so I am back. I don't know why, but I was dropped. So let me share the screen one more time. Can you hear me, guys?
Yeah, all good, Mateusz. I think it was a connection problem. Yeah.
Okay, so let me start maybe from scratch. Yes, so in this presentation, I will try to show you why I think the signal forms is one of the biggest refing of the forms we had in Angular. Like in the Angular community, there was discussion regarding the forms and refactoring, improving the forms for years already. And we haven't been discussing like what will be the reactive mechanism under the hood. Probably majority of us expects it will be still RxJS. But what we have been discussing was the types and type safety actually. And I think we didn't expect the type safety to be that good as it is actually in the signal forms, right? Because there was try to bringing the types into reactive forms and so on. And even we can say we have types in the reactive forms, but it's not that level that we can see it on the signal forms. So what is this talk about? I just divided it into 3 steps: simplicity, reactivity, and joy. Because I think that are the 3 main reasons I really still loves the working with the forms in the Angular. And before we dive into my presentation, I have to underline that signal forms are still experimental in Angular 21. In the upcoming weeks, months, we should expect probably the next release. I don't know whether that release will change the status of the signal forms. But what I can say that I am tracking the API from the very beginning since it's been released. And all of that changes that being applied to the signal forms are not such critical, and there is no breaking change, like massive breaking changes, right? So all of the changes that being introduced and will and for us to take some action, refactor our code and so on, are not that big. So for me, that's pretty good sign that API is already in pretty good condition, and probably even if some of you will start using it since day one, you will be rather safe, right? Based what I can observe in scope of the changes. But still, we have to keep in mind that the status is experimental, and rather we should try to avoid it on production. So let's start with part 1, simplicity. So before we move on to discussing the signal forms, I would like to bring on the table the current state of the game, so reactive forms. And here I distinguish 2 most annoying issues from my perspective. So if we take a look at the left side, there are some typing issues. And if you take a look that I have created there some new form control with the name email, and I initialize it with an empty string, right? So I am indicating that my expected value here will be the string. And then whenever I am trying to access this value, TypeScript evaluates it into string null. Always, like even though I know it's always will be string, there is an assumption that null is possible. And the same applies whenever I am using the get function of my form, right? So I am providing the path to the control, and what I am getting like abstract control of unknown or null, right? So already here we have like 2 strange types. First is the unknown and the second is null. What is even worse in this case, that if you make some misspelling in scope of the get function, you will not even get notified, right? So there is no strict typing in scope of this function, and verification of right path that you provided to your control. And the same issue applying to the form arrays, right? So we are accessing some form array at specific index, and what we are getting like pure abstract control. So we are not even getting the type of this control. And by the end of the day, all of that enforcing us for some strange casting, creating some wrapper methods, getters, and so on, within which we are just casting the types of our controls. Another annoying issue is the boilerplate. So how many times we have been rewriting this take until, destroy ref, ng on destroy, and all of that stuff that has nothing to do with the forms, right? So it's entire ceremony around the reactive forms to make them actually working, right? So it's not like we are realizing and fulfilling some business logic, implementing the logic of our form, actions, and so on. We're writing this entire code to make our forms not leaking memory and actually working in the reactive system that they are written in, right? So this is another annoying issues, that we cannot focus on the things that the form is actually to provide to our business, our domain, but we are focusing strongly on the technologies around it and how to make it working safe, not leaking the memory, and so on. In scope of the signal forms, there is some new idea. It's called form model, and it's such a fundamental shift because right now our form model, so the signal with which we are initializing our form, being constantly synchronized with the form, right? So the model value and the form value will be synchronized constantly. We are declaring the model, and then we are initializing our form with this model, as you can see on this piece of the code. And right now, whenever we change the form, our model will be updated. And whenever we change the model, our form will be updated. So there is two-way sync between the form and the model. And the form is such fundamentally important right now in the signal forms that even in the documentation, we have the dedicated page for form models and like the way we should design our models. So it's not only about the fact that they are being synchronized and so on, but also Angular is trying to underline how important it is to distinguish the domain model, like the backend model also, like which we are getting from the backend, to our UI model that we are trying to implement by creating the form and provide the proper user experience. So we should not mess up between the form model and like backend model, domain model, however we call it in this situation, right? But what is important, that the form has its own representation of the model that's being critical to provide the right user experience for our users when they are working with our form. So what we can think about the model, that for example on the backend model we might keep the date in the single field, and this single field will contain the time and the date. But on the form we might collect it as a time separately and date separately, right? And those two models are fundamentally different already, because in our login model we will have their like time and date, but backend will contain only the date as a single field. And we should not try to do some magic on the UI to keep it as a single form or single field if we actually collecting it into two different fields. So creating the form is extremely simple. So what we need to do, we already said, is defining the model. So that's the first step and very important, as you can see. Of course, it depends of the how advanced and complicated being your form, right? Because if it's like two fields form where you don't need some advanced strategies, you can even initialize it in line here, right? But majority of the forms are pretty complicated and like doing some business logic. And then that's why I created model, which is simply the writable signal. So we are creating it simply like regular signal. We are providing it as a first parameter to our form method. So the form method is coming from the signal forms. You can also see like even more and more APIs around the Angular became functional. And right now, even the creating the form became the function. And as a second parameter, we can think of as configuration of our form. So here we are passing the function, which accepts as a first parameter the form tree of our form with all the paths to the controls. And here we are initializing all of the validators and async validators, some conditions, certain conditions like disabled, hidden, and so on. So this way created form, we can then accessing the values with full typing support. What might be annoying at the very beginning is that the access to the control and access to the value of control is like double read of the signal, right? So if you want to have an access to the properties of our control, like value, valid, invalid, and so on, we have to double read it, right? So at the very beginning, it was confusing for me as well, but I believe we'll get used to that when we start practicing, working, and so on. But as you can see here, I said like and initialize my email control as a string. And here, when I am reading its value, it's actually the string, right? So there is no assumption that, oh, maybe it will be null. No, we already know it will be the string. So here we have the comparison next to each other, how initializing exactly the same controls looks in reactive forms and signal forms. So here is our model. We can treat some entity. Maybe we are getting it from the parent, maybe from the API. The same applies here. Then we initialize our form using the form function. Here we need to provide the form builder and declare that we are just creating the group. And we are just initializing the email control as entity email, right? And since that time that we initialize the form with an entity properties, they are desynchronized. So there is no two-way data synchronization between them. So if I'm like changing the value of the form control of email, my entity email will not be updated, right? It will be still the initial value I had it during the initialization. So in the signal forms, it's totally different because, as we already said, they both being synchronized. So if I go to my form and I set the value of my email control and I read the model email property, it will be the new value I set in scope of the form, right? So we have to keep in mind that if we are updating the model, we are updating the form. If we are updating the form, we are updating model. They are like the value of them are always synchronized. And let's take a look one more time on this type safety, because I think it's like one of the things that hits me the most for when I working with when I have been working with the signal forms for the very first time. So I initialize exactly same controls and with same values next to each other. And again, as you can see, whenever I'm trying to access the user email value, I'm getting some abstract control of unknown. The value will be probably without the type as well. But if we take a look here in scope of the signal forms, I am getting out of like by default the proper values like the string, number, and so on. If I try to access the control that not exist, like as here, I misspell email into email, something like that. There is no type error during the compilation, right? But here I am immediately will get some kind of the error and my app will not compile at all. If I am accessing some controls in scope of the arrays, I am getting always the correct type. It will be the string because I said like an items is an array of the strings. Here the value will be any and I will need to create the get method to cast it properly and so on. So right now we will talk about the reactivity. And here I would like to share with you some application that I built for the purpose of my workshops, because I'm also doing some workshops from the signal forms and Angular latest practices. So right now, let us try to build the custom validator. And the purpose of this validator will be verifying if those two passwords being exactly the same, right? If they are the same, then we should pass the validation, but if they are different, we should throw an error. So let me open the repository. Is it this one? Yeah, it's probably this one. So give me a second. Okay, let me change the appearance because it might be too small. So here is my validation component. And here I have my form in scope of which I will try to add the validation. So as I showed you already, like to add some predefined validators like that are pretty known for us. Let's say required, min left, max left, and so on. So we know all of that validators. So they are provided by Angular itself, right? So I can type like required and provide the path to my control, like username. And this way I can say that the username is required, right? And there is like entire set of pre-built validators that we already had in the reactive forms, like required, min length, max length, email, and so on. But also, of course, we can create our custom validators, and it's being done in the same way using the function. So there is dedicated function called validate. And with that function, we have to provide the path to the control we are trying to validate. So as I said, as a second parameter, we are providing the function which accepts some schema path tree, which being the path to our controls we define in scope of our model, right? So we can think about it as some path to controls, right? In simple words. So if I press right now the F and like dot, I have the access to all of my controls in scope of my model. And here I am defining like to which control I want to apply my validator. So in our case, I would say, okay, I want to apply the validator to confirm password. And as a second parameter, we are passing the function responsible for validating. And this function already provides us with some utility functions and properties to write the correct decorator. So one of them is the value, which will be the value of our control. And the second one is value of, which provides us with the value of the control at specific path, right? So it's simply get value of control at this path. So first let's return the undefined. So undefined is returned when there is no errors. And right now we can create our validator. So first of all, I will get the password value. So I need to go to value of, and I need to provide the path of control password. So right now I am getting then access to my password control value. And as a second, I need to read the confirm password, which I am having under the value. And by having both of them, I can write my validation logic. So I can say if password exists and the confirm passwords exist and they are different, then let's throw some error of type. And here we provide the kind, which being some unique key for this particular error, based on which then we can identify our error in the template and all kinds of the error handlers we want to perform some logic based on the type of our error. So it's kind of the type of your error, unique type of your error, you can say, right? Based on which you identify. And here I can provide some message like, oh, sorry, password do not match, let's say. And right now we also have to make sure it's being handled in scope of our. Okay, we have already the handler for our mismatch case. So as you can see here, I am just reading the control of the errors from the confirm password, and I am iterating over them, right? And then based on the switch case, which is like going through the type, like kind right now, which I call the type of our error, I am having two cases for required and mismatch, and I am just providing the right error message if one of them occurs. So let's take a look at the app right now. Is everything rebuilt? Probably it is. So I will type there like the test, and here I will test 1, 2, 3. As you can see, I am already getting the error that my password is not matching the confirm password is not matching the password. And what is really nice there, that if I delete like these three numbers here, it's reactively detect that, okay, the validators are firing right now, but it's also will detect that the confirm password validation is correct right now if I start typing to the password control, right? So we can see that this validator is fully reactive for both of those control. So the one of them, like to which I apply the validate function and provide the path, like this validator being applied to confirm password, but also it's being reactive for the controls I read in scope of the validate, right? So it's reactive and reacting for two kind of the changes, change of the confirm password and change of the password, right? So it's really being great. Okay, and also what is impressive regarding the typing, I would like to show you right now, that if you take a look at the username in my HTML, let's say, I declare that it is type of the text, right? So there is no other indicator like what is the type of the control. Then one here that I initialize it with the string, and here in the HTML that I said that this accepts the text. And if I right now change this initial value to the 1, we will get an error that the number is not assignable to type string. And it's recognizing that we make some mistake and the type probably should be the string based on this declaration here, right? So based on this type that we provide to the input control. So it's really well secured in terms of the typing, and the compiler is really secure us for all kind of the mistakes we can do while working with the forms, right? So this is something we could only dream about when working with the reactive forms. It will let me put there any kind of the control without like even bothering what is the expected type. Also, what is great about the signal forms that we have there only one type of the directive. So everything being the form field. There is no form arrays, there is no form controls, form groups, and so on. We completely not using any kind of this stuff. We only relying on the form field, and we are binding everything to the form field. Okay, so let me come back to my presentation. So we discussed the cross-field validators, but there are also some async validations built in with built-in the bounds. So also maybe let me show that right now we can apply the bounds two ways, right? So one of them is in scope of the async validator, right, as a parameter, here the bounds. But also we can say directly here that the bounds should be applied to control of username with 100 milliseconds delay, right? So we have two ways of applying the bounds. One this way and one specifically for some particular validators. And we distinguish two types of the async validators. One of them is validate HTTP. And I think like both of them are very similar to the resources. So if you're familiar with the resources, this should be more or less familiar for you. Like validate HTTP, that we are, first of all, we're providing the path to the control we want to apply these validators to. And then in scope of the request, we are providing the path of the request of the request with the parameters that should be applied in scope of the request. And whenever this value change, the request will be performed. Of course, if we declare that it should be the bounce, it will be the bounce for some specific amount of time. And then in scope of the on success, we are handling whether there are some errors or there is no errors in terms of the expected value, but also there is a situation when maybe due to some network, you might not perform this request properly, and you can also handle it in scope of the on error handler. There is another async validator, which being the validate async, and it's provide us with more control because here, of course, we know we are providing only the path, and under the hood HTTP client is like making the request to this path. Here we have the entire factory function where we can declare our own way of performing the request, whether it should go through the resource, whether it should trigger some dedicated method in scope of our service and so on. So like entire control is on our side in this situation of choosing the proper way and mechanism of making the request. Also here we can, for example, in scope of the params parameter, verify if, for example, the username already has length more than 3 because like minimal length is 3, for example. And if there is no free charge, we are just skipping the validation completely, and on success and on error handlers behave exactly the same as in case of this HTTP validator. So we are performing our validation based on the response. If there are some, in this case here, it's the classic example of checking if the username is available, and we can like select one. So if it's fine, we return null or undefined, that there is no error. But if the available is false, it means that the username is taken, and we are just returning an error. And this error which we return from onSuccess handler will be immediately applied to the username control. And the bigger picture of the signal forms is that it's perfectly fit to the reactive system that Angular team choose for the Angular. So the signals, and around the signals we have a lot of APIs because we have like input signals, which are really great in terms of working with the forms, but we have the resources, we have the link signal, and so on. And here in this example, we have we see the great example how all of them working based on each other, and how one of them fulfill another, right? So first of all, I have some HTTP resource that will fetch for me the user based on the user ID. And then this value of this resource being the source for my link signal, right? What does it mean? That whenever the user resource value change, my link signal will be evaluated. And when my link signal will be evaluated and recomputed, it will create for me the new user model. And if the user exists from the user resource, it will map it from the domain to the form model. So this is related for managing this model I discussed with you at the very beginning, that we should care like that domain and the UI model, if they have to be different, and we have to map between both of them. But if there is no user from the backend, it will create me an empty form. And right now, in scope of my form, I am using the link signal as my model, right? So what does it mean? That whenever the form model change, the form value will be changed as well, and all of the validators will be evaluated again, right? So how it might looks like in practice, that the user ID is coming to us from the input. And whenever the input change, new user being fetched, new user is fetched, the link signal recompute, it's create the model, and then new model being propagated to the form, right? So we can see how it works in one reactive graph, in some circle, and all of them relying on each other in extremely powerful reactive manner. And the last part is the joy. So one more of the most enjoyable things regarding working with Angular and fun is like lack of the control value accessor. So I guess like a lot of you has been creating the custom controls, and in majority of cases, creating this custom control was kind of the nightmare. So let's compare creating the custom control in the reactive forms and signal forms. In the reactive forms, we always had to implement the control value accessor, and then we had to provide some ng value accessor. We had to use some forward ref, which was not that obvious for majority of us what is actually the use case, why I even have to use it, and so on. And despite of that, we also had to implement plenty of some dummy methods that were like empty or just default as an Angular provide to us without any kind of the changes in majority of cases. Like we always had to declare this register on change, on touch, and so on and so on. And we very often didn't even touch this code, change this code, but it's always had to exist. So a lot of boilerplate. And if we compare it with the signal forms, we also have there some interface. It's being called form value control, and it's accept the type of the control value. But the difference is that we only have to implement this interface and declare the value of our control, right? So we are creating only one property, which being called a value and being type of the new input model with two-way data binding. And that's it. So no more boilerplate, no strange methods which no one understands the purpose of, no provider, anything like that. Only implementing the dedicated interface, providing the type of your control, so you finally have fully typed subcontrols, custom controls, and only one property, value of type model. That's it. Simple like that. Of course, we can implement more controls if we need to, right? So if we need to provide some custom errors through the input, some disable state, touch, or implement the focus method, which is very helpful because right now on our errors, we can call the focus, and the focus, which like if we have an error on the control, an error provide us with the method to focus this control. So if we will have this focus method implemented, then I can call on my error focus bound control, and the control with an error will be immediately focused. So also some awesome utility function. There is also some more interfaces, like actually one of them. It's form checkbox control, and this is kind of the interface dedicated for some controls like toggle, switch, where we, instead of the value, we provide the checked and with the type of model boolean, right? But we can achieve exactly same control, but saying form value control boolean, right? And then provide the value with the boolean instead of the number. So those are two type of the interfaces we have to, or we can to implement when creating custom controls, and both of them expect from us only one control to work. Everything beyond that is an optional, and we can adjust based on our needs. So we have also some reusable schemas, and it's also something new in scope of the signal forms, that we can group our validators around the interfaces, around the models, right? So let's say I have my address model, I have my contact model, and I know that validator for this model is always exactly the same for all kind of the occurrence of this model across of the forms. So instead of like applying exactly same validators multiple times, we can declare one schema for some specific model, where the schema is like the set of the validators for this particular model, right? So I am saying that for the address, the street, city, postal code are always required, and the postal code should have exactly this pattern with two numbers, slash like or margin, and then three numbers up to the country, yeah. And the same apply to the contact schema, where I say like that it should be required for the email. Email should be valid email, and the phone number should have like 9 digits, right? And then when I having my form, I can apply the schema to the particular path, right? So I'm saying here, hey, apply these validators from the address schema to the form billing. apply the address schema validators to the form shipping, and apply like contact schema to form contact. Also, what is extremely powerful that we can apply certain validators based on the condition. So we have there something like apply when we are providing that some particular validator should be applied to the form shipping only when the value of delivery type is shipping, right? So we want to make our shipping address required and so on, only in the case when user actually select that the delivery type will be shipping. Otherwise, all of these controls will be optional. And one of the greatest improvements, I would say, in scope of the reactive forms is end of the form arrays. So right now, working with the forms in the signal forms is not different than actually working with the forms in your regular variables, right? So there is no pattern like form array or anything like that, what we already said, everything being the form field. But actually like updating the values has not dedicated methods like push and so on that are hidden under the specific API like form array and so on. But we are actually working like on the regular signal variables, right? So we know that the signal have an update method, right? And if we want to add one more item to our items in scope of our model, we are just simply spreading all of the items and introducing the new one, right? That's being the add. So like regular update of the value without some extra APIs around it, like nothing more is needed to introduce or remove the control from your form. So again, I have my model that being the signal with an array of items. And when I want to introduce one more item in scope of my form, one more item in scope of my model, I am using the regular signal update method, right? So this is the signal API. It has nothing to do with the forms. And what you are doing, you are just adding some extra item to your items. And based on that, it will be immediately populated to your form. It will be represented in the HTML and so on. And again, for applying the validators, we have a dedicated function being called apply each, which in simple word means apply to each item in scope of this array the particular validators, required and min, right? So we call apply each, providing the path to an array in scope of our form, and then entire set of the validators we accept being applied. So before you use in the production, keep in mind that the signal forms still being an experimental. Make sure that there is an ecosystem built around the signal forms. I don't know exact status at this moment, but I remember that Angular Mateliar PrimeNG had some problems at the beginning when that was introduced. Maybe something has changed right now, but I know you are working with also some other libraries with some custom controls. So keep in mind that it might not work perfectly yet. The documentation is incomplete. There are some edge cases. For example, there is no clear indicator how we should work with the forms, how we should iterate over the items, and so on. There are some edge cases which are not handled yet in the documentation. And breaking changes are possible, as I said, but they are not massive. Like one of them was renamed from the field to form field, right? So extremely simple change to apply across of all of the occurrence, but still, sometimes it's happened. So right now, I recommend you like play around it, try to use some skills, create the dedicated skills that you can utilize in scope of your AI models and AI assistants, because we know like they are not always up to date with the latest APIs. So we have to work a little bit, especially during the the introduction of new API before it's being populated to the documentation, AI model catches, and so on and so on. We have to find our ways, find our skills, create our skills. You can use in scope of the application some kind of the bridges that Angular provides. One of them is compat form, the another one is signal form control, which lets you mix the reactive forms and signal forms together. But actually, I would prefer to on in like myself, right? I am not saying it's bad to rather avoid it and try to use purely in separation reactive and the signal forms if possible. And that's it. It's experimental, so it's also extremely valuable if you will play around, provide some feedback to the Angular team, and so on. So thank you for giving me a chance being with you guys, and hopefully it was insightful for you.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you very much, Mateusz. This is a very, very nice topic. Um, yeah. Yeah. Because I know it's experimental, right, for signal
Yeah,
forms, but I saw the difference. The best thing for me is the control value accessor. So
yeah,
while I was looking that we're changing it, I was so happy because you're saying the right thing. That some parts there you don't really know
yeah.
how
It
you.
was
Yeah.
extremely annoying to work with the custom controls, and also like why I think it might be harder to migrate for some people, because in a lot of Angular project I saw how the teams has built, plenty of things around the forms to make it easier to create custom controls and
Mhm.
so on and so on. They have been wrapping the APIs with some own implementation. So yeah, it might be tricky for a lot of projects to migrate.
Yeah, true. Yeah, because for us, we're also in our project we also have a lot of forms. But
Yeah,
for example, a star rating or a slider and stuff, you can see in
yeah,
the UI it's quite simple. But creating a custom or
yeah,
implementing the control value accessor, it's harder because there are some functions that you need to implement, and some functions there it's just there. You don't
yeah,
you don't put any logic, right? So it's quite
exactly.
yeah, it's quite annoying. But because of the changes of the signal forms, it's really nice that it's only a value, it's only a model, it's only a signal. Then
Yeah,
you can
simple property like value, and it's already synchronized with your forms. You don't have anything to do.
yeah. Yeah, and also for the validations, for the resource, right, and the validate
Mhm.
HTTP. So it's really nice because for previously when you're using your active forms, you still need to call the value changes,
Yes.
to call an API. But now it's everything is simple. So you just
Yeah.
have to make it in one function, that's it. And you have to bind it on the form. So yeah, because for us, we're also planning to move to signal
Hmm.
forms. Not right now because as you've said, right, it's still experimental.
Yeah.
So yeah, at your own risk, guys. So as Mateusz said, you can use it, but be careful, especially for production, because it's still experimental and it's still since it's open source. You can actually maybe you can also contribute if you can, or yeah, um, give some suggestions and on your maybe pet projects you can try forms, and if you find some bugs it will be helpful for the Angular team to improve the framework itself, right? So yeah, it's very interesting. I
Yeah.
really love this topic.
I,
Thank you
I
very
love the signal forms, and actually, to be
yeah,
honest, cannot wait when they really move on
I cannot
from
wait.
this experimental status, and I will start using them day one.
Yeah, for us as well. It's on our roadmap actually, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's still on hold because it's still experimental. But yeah, we did move to signals for the project, so the next thing is this one, the signal forms. So it's really nice to have it. A lot of things were very simple now compared to
Yes.
before.
Yes. Actually, that was the point, probably, to make the framework, simpler
Yeah,
for newcomers, right?
that's true. Yeah, because when yeah previously the history of Angular, it's not that easy. So I've been
Yes.
working with Angular for a long time as well. So using observables, RxJS can be still be used, but yeah, previously it was much harder to understand. So yeah, guys, if you have any questions, so you can actually comment. Um, you can actually comment for yeah, what are your questions? If you have any other um inquiries for Mateusz, so please let us know. You can actually comment. We have some viewers in our Facebook page, also in YouTube. So let us know. So yeah, general questions or specifically to the signal forms if you have.
Yeah,
So
any kind of them,
yeah,
it's fine.
yeah. Before waiting for the questions, Mateusz, I have some personal questions for you as well. So yeah, because I'm not sure if you already encountered it, but let's say for example, one project, so they're planning to like migrate to signal forms from reactive forms. Do you have any ideas already, or any tools that can be easy to migrate to signal forms from reactive?
Yeah, so actually, that's what I said a little bit that I don't see some easy way to migrate because in usually like from the let's say the inputs, view child and all of that stuff was easy to migrate based on some schematics in majority of cases. Of course, there were some edge cases that maybe it was not working, but yeah, probably it handled majority of them. The same apply to the control flow, right?
Yeah,
So but here in the reactive forms or template driven forms, because you might have both of them in your project,
that's true.
it's not that easy. I don't see any kind of the way to make it safe. Of course, if I was put like next to each other, like forms from my example, it will be extremely simple because they are actually simple, right? But if we take into account so plenty of subscribes and the logic that is going on inside of this subscribe, when some control value change and so on and so on, I don't think so that there is an easy way to handle it using the schematics because we don't know how you actually want to handle it in this new API. If you will rather put it in the effect, or maybe you will call the resource, or maybe you will do it, throughout your signal store. It's up to you, right? So this will be the problem. And the second thing I see as a problem is fact that we mentioned already that Teams has built plenty of APIs above of the reactive forms. Even in one of our projects when we working, like we have the dedicated classes and so on for creating the form control faster from the component and so on, faster than the usual case from for using the control value access or and so on.
Yeah,
So in real business project, I don't see so far easy way. There are these utilities like compact form when you can put signal control and the form control together and it will cast it to the signal forms. But if I will have to mix them up, I would rather prefer to, okay, spend some time and already write everything in the signal forms, right? Than actually doing like server controls reactive forms and one signal. So why do even introduce it here? Let's it be reactive forms and that's it.
yeah,
Okay, I see also there is the question, right?
yeah.
So
There is
what
the
are the
question.
ways the signals reduce the boilerplate and memory leaks typically associated with reactive forms? So I think the majority, the biggest different, major difference is fact that we not subscribing at all in the reactive, in the signal forms, right? So everything being done based on the signals reactivity, which not require any kind of the subscriptions. So where the component being destroyed, like this reactivity is destroyed with it. In the reactive forms, it was not the case, right? So if we not unsubscribe from the subscriptions, they were constantly alive, even though the component was actually already uh, not live in the template, it was destroyed. So if we didn't unsubscribe, there was possibility of leaking some memory. So that's the main difference, the reactive system under the API.
Yeah, and also zones, right? So we're not
Yeah.
using Zone.js anymore. So that's also part of how that you check the changes as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, thank you, Kyle, and thank you, Matthias. Yeah, also just an addition, Matthias. Yeah, because what you said also on the migration stuff, I also read some article about it. I forgot who shared this one. I think it was Elaine. So I think it's Manfred. I forgot, but yeah, you can actually combine reactive in signal forms, right? Yeah, because they're also saying that if you're ready to migrate, if you have really a big form, so you can actually um, like do it step by step. So if it's really hard for you um to migrate it in like one bomb, so the forms as a whole as signal form, you can actually put it like a step by step way. So this part of the form can be signal first, and the other ones or the other parts or the um other form controls can be reactive. So
Mm-hmm.
it
Yes.
depends on the strategy. So yeah,
Yes.
it's also an interesting article.
Yeah, that might be the strategy, but I
Yeah.
was thinking about it as myself, like as a developer, was thinking about, and I'm not sure if in any of my cases actually it will be valuable for me to introduce to some complicated form at some point two patterns, if I would
Yeah.
not prefer actually to let me spend more time on it, do it maybe slower but at once, right? Then actually managing between two of them, I don't know, maybe releasing like half reactive, half signal, and then there is a bug. Where is this bug? you know I would be probably afraid, right? I would prefer to do it once, but I might not have like the full scope, of each single use case. I'm saying like for myself what I would do if someone will ask me to migrate, right? And also it's of course, I believe it's not possible that, we will go right now, all of us will go to our applications and we start deleting these reactive forms and rewriting them to signal forms if they are actually working properly,
Mhm. Yeah.
probably,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that could be a dilemma, right? Because you have two patterns that you need to maintain, and yeah,
Yeah.
it will be complicated. Yeah, it depends really on how would you take the approach on migration. So yeah,
Also,
we
there
have
must be time and there must be money, right? From the
yeah,
product
yes,
owners. We
yeah,
also have to talk about it because that's part of the game as well, right? So if you
yeah,
have already working application that works well, is written on the reactive forms, will someone really be will to rewrite right now everything to the signal forms, introduce potential bugs to working forms, and so on? I don't know, right?
yeah. True. Yeah, you should have like evaluate things first. Yeah, there are a lot of pros when you try to migrate to the signal forms, but yeah, Mateusz is right. So it's time and money. So it's not just about the advantages; it's also about the things, the criteria that you need
Yeah.
in order for you to rewrite it. So you still really need to
Yeah,
evaluate
so
it.
from my side, it's like you starting something new. I have no doubts which way you go. You have
Yeah,
existing one, you have to think, evaluate, and decide, right? So
yeah,
that's how I see it.
yeah, yeah. True. So, but if it's really advantageous for project, then yeah, go for it.
Yeah,
If there's a lot of advantage that can give you, so that's really nice. Okay, yeah, we have questions. I think this is a general question.
yeah. If
Yeah,
there,
for Angular remote jobs other than online jobs, LinkedIn, JobStreet, or Indeed. So yeah, do you have anything in mind, Matish?
to be honest, I don't have, right. I know like there is some remote IO or something like that. There are some web pages like that. Never actually try them out, but I think like the one you mentioned here are the most popular, like especially probably the LinkedIn and Indeed,
Yeah,
where Indeed also support you guys for applying like US, but also UK and so on when you like based on the path, right? So Indeed
mm,
UK, Indeed.com, and so on. There is a lot of remote jobs probably, but some of them also require some visa and so on. So it's not always that easy to get job remotely in the UK or USA actually.
yeah. It's also because of the data. I think especially here in Europe. So that's why I also migrated from Philippines to Netherlands because of the
Mhm.
data security. So I cannot really work remotely.
Yeah.
So yeah, they want me to go here. So even Ryan, Ryan is actually also a Filipino, but he's now living in Germany. Ryan, are you there? So all of us are actually in Europe, so we need to migrate. But yeah, I think for I have one. I worked in California remotely back in 2018. Um, the name of the website is Angel List, but I think it's not Angel List now. It's called Well Found, if I'm not mistaken. You can actually search for it. It's Well Found Talents. Usually the companies are joining there are startups. So yeah, if you want to have an experience of how the startup works, then you can actually go there. So I'll just type it in the comment. It's Well Found. But yeah, in LinkedIn as well, um, there are a lot of remotes. But yeah,
Yeah.
usually you need to go to the country where you want to work. So yeah, there. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's all of the questions. But yeah,
Fine.
I don't. We don't want to take too much time of Mateusz. So Mateusz, thank you very much
Thank
again
you,
for
guys.
yeah, thank you for accepting our invite. But last thing, do you want anything that you can promote for your House of Angular or any speaking
Mm,
engagement you have?
so what I can promote, like I can share with you guys. So maybe let me share the screen because I was saying that we are doing some workshops, right? So if you would be interested in the workshops, so you can go to the houseofangular.io and there is like an workshops subpage, and here you can take a look when the particular workshop is taking part. So upcoming workshops are regarding the scalable architecture done by Fanis from the Greece. He's also Google developer expert. I've been working with him in the one of the project for some USA based customer. He's really great developer, great person. So those are some great workshops if you would like to improve in terms of the architecture in scope of the NX monorepo. And in the June, I have been doing some modern Angular with support of AI. Here I am like touching and discussing all of these latest patterns in scope of the Angular, like signals itself, the APIs around the signals, new control flow, what are the benefits of the flow, not only like the syntax, but also performance. And I would like to try some AI flows I am actually utilizing while working with Angular. So we'll show how I proceed with some example ticket, what are my requirements, direct prompts, and so on. So this will be taking part in June. So yeah, so maybe you will be guys interested in our workshops. And thank you for giving me a chance to also mention that.
Oh yeah, sure, Mateusz. Yeah, if you also have some posters or yeah, materials that you can post in Angular Philippines page, so other
Mhm.
people who didn't attend this can also like check.
Okay, I will let Natalia know, and maybe we will share something. It will be
Yeah,
great.
all right. Yeah, that would be great. And yeah, again, thank you very much,
Thank you,
Mateusz.
guys.
Really a very very interesting and very
So
nice topic for the
enjoy your evening for those who are from Philippines, guys. From those joining us from the Europe, have a nice weekend. Rest of the weekend, right? Because it's only a few hours left, and
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, a few hours in the Philippines, and maybe soon. I hope maybe there's a chance you can also visit them and share your expertise live with the Philippine community as well. So that
Okay.
would be really great. Yeah, and yeah, thank you very much, and I
Thank you,
hope
guys.
yeah, I hope we can invite you again. Yeah,
Yeah, it will be. We'll be more than happy to join. So just let me know, and we can set up something whenever you will have free
yeah,
slot.
yes, yeah. We're always happy to have you as a speaker. All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you
Bye,
very
guys.
much. Yeah, bye guys. Thank you for joining.